And then the big thing that we're here to talk about this afternoon is reordering the course. So this is in the more traditional sense of still teaching in a kind of a unit-by-unit structure. You're going to hear about a more kind of revolutionary approach of spiraling. The Eastview team did do kind of like micro-spiraling, which we'll touch on, but it's really, it's more of a traditional approach than what you'll hear from the other two teams. Okay, and quite simply, this is a before and after snapshot. So for whatever reason, history, tradition, the grade 9 program, whether it's academic or applied, tended to start with algebra or the skills leading right into, so there would be, okay, we got to go over fractions and integers and algebra, and all of those things that the typical grade 9 applied student struggles with and struggled with in elementary school, and right off the bat we're hammering them with topics that doesn't really set them up for early success. So that was one of the big issues. We thought, why? Why do we need to do that? Could we turn the course on its ear and start with topics that are more familiar with these students, more easy to contextualize to real-world applications? Students have been seeing some of the basic measurement and geometry concepts that we're simply building on right since grade 1, if not earlier. So that's where we went. So we started with measurement and then all of the geometry topics, bringing algebra in midway through the course. And when you do it that way, then what you can do then is when you're trying to get at some of the higher order thinking in algebra, which is already kind of an abstract concept, you can still connect it back to measurement and geometry concepts. So you could be presenting the area of perimeter, and I'm sure you've seen these problems where the length and width, for example, are given in terms of algebraic expressions, and so they're kind of tackling both together. So that's an example of that kind of spiraling concept, not really the true spiraling, but. And then same thing with linear relations and rate of change. You can always bring those back and use measurement geometry as a context for those new units. So that's okay. So once they had that in place, then what they did was every unit they reconsidered what they had done before. So they really went in clean slate, unit by unit. And what you're seeing a picture of here is all of the specific expectations for that unit, and they excised all of the, while it's still important information, but for readability's sake, they took out all the sample problems, the EGs, the IEs, and just put the words of the expectation, just to help sort out what will be the new order that we're going to do these topics in. And I'll throw in now, because the question came up at one of the earlier sessions, well, where did they, like the strategies which drove the sequencing, like where did they get the ideas for that? And the Eastview team typically attends the OAME conference every year. They go as a team. They attend many of the plenary sessions together, like Dan Meyer, I know is one of their big inspirations. And then they'll strategically split up too, and they'll go to, And so I remember at the outset of this project, they were saying, okay, well, we've attended all these sessions and we were really inspired. We haven't really had time to sit down and try to infuse specific strategies down into our courses. So this is where they started. They chopped up the expectations and they reordered it that way. Does it work? Right? That's always the question. Where's the data? Does it support? So in 3 of the 4 thinking or achievement chart categories, they saw an increase, which is reassuring. And then, of course, you have the question, well, okay, applications seem to go down. Is that a bad thing? And then they reflected and considered the fact that before, when they did algebra first, the thinking questions or the application questions really weren't that rich, because they hadn't really covered a lot of topics by then. Whereas afterward, when they got to the application questions in using geometry and measurement, they were much richer. So they weren't too dismayed by the seemingly negative in the one category, and all the other categories went up. So they felt pretty good about the direction that they had taken.